I thought my 8-year marriage to Amanda was rock solid until I found a divorce lawyer's business card tucked away in her purse. The discovery hit me like a freight train, but something inside warned me to keep quiet. We still laughed over dinner, still kissed goodnight, but suddenly every smile seemed calculated. I built our life with my software engineering salary funding 70% of everything we owned. Now I wondered if she had been planning her exit all along, waiting for the perfect moment to cash out on our shared dreams. Before I tell you how I discovered my wife's betrayal, let me know where you are watching from and hit that subscribe button if you have ever had that feeling that something just was not right in your relationship. 10 years ago, I met Amanda at a tech conference in Portland. I was presenting a talk on software architecture when I noticed her in the third row taking detailed notes and asking the most insightful questions. She worked in marketing for a competing firm, and our conversation at the networking mixer afterward sparked something I had never felt before. Her intelligence and ambition matched my own drive perfectly. Our courtship happened fast. Weekend trips to Lake Tahoe, late-night conversations about our future, and within a year, I proposed at the same conference where we first met. The wedding was small but perfect at her family vineyard in Sonoma, with close friends and family celebrating what everyone called a perfect match. We settled in Seattle, buying a craftsman-style home in a neighborhood with good schools. My career at a major tech firm accelerated with promotions and stock options, increasing our financial stability. Amanda transitioned from marketing to consulting, which offered flexibility but less consistent income. I always reassured her it did not matter, that what was mine was hers. We maintained joint accounts for everything, never once arguing about money despite me contributing substantially more. 3 months ago, I began noticing subtle shifts in her behavior. Amanda started working later, her explanations vague about client meetings running long. She mentioned new friends, business contacts, whose names I never quite caught. More concerning was her sudden guardedness, with her phone changing passwords and stepping away to take calls. The first concrete evidence came when I was running late for work and needed the parking pass. Amanda had left for the gym, so I quickly checked her purse on the counter. Behind her wallet, I found it. A business card for Patricia Williams, family law specialist with divorce expert, written in elegant script. My fingers trembled as I put everything back, exactly as I found it. That evening, I called Jake, my closest friend since college, and met him for drinks. We had been each other's best man, and I trusted his judgment completely. "You need to be careful, Houston," Jake warned, nursing his beer. "If she is planning something, confronting her might just accelerate her timeline before you are prepared." Prepared for what I asked, still unable to fully process what might be happening. For protecting yourself. Washington is a community property state. She could be entitled to half of everything regardless of who earned it. His words haunted me for days. I decided against immediate confrontation, choosing instead to pay closer attention, gathering information, while protecting what I had spent years building. Over the next week, Amanda's behavior provided more reasons for concern. Returning from the shower one evening, I overheard her phone conversation ending with, "Do not worry. I will get what I deserve out of this." She claimed it was about a difficult client when I casually asked, but her eyes never met mine. When she thought I was working late one night, I came home early and witnessed her scrutinizing our financial statements, something she had shown little interest in before. The browser history on our shared computer revealed searches for Washington state divorce laws and property division. Another evening, her email remained open on her tablet, showing a message to her friend Tanya discussing starting fresh and getting half of everything we built. There was even a search for luxury apartments in Portland, where we had no business connections or reasons to relocate. The financial red flags began appearing next. Our joint checking account showed withdrawals of $3,000 with no explanation. When I mentioned it casually over breakfast, she claimed it was for a surprise she was planning. The credit card statement revealed a $500 consultation fee to Patricia Williams' law office, the same name as the business card. Most alarming was my discovery that she had been systematically moving small amounts from our savings into a private account I had no knowledge of. Each night became more difficult than the last. I would lie beside her, listening to her steady breathing, wondering how someone could share your bed while planning to dismantle your life. The weight of betrayal made it difficult to maintain our normal routines. But somehow, I managed to smile through dinners and weekend activities, while my mind raced with questions and contingency plans. After 2 weeks of gathering evidence, I scheduled meetings with both a financial advisor and a lawyer specializing in family law. Both confirmed my fears about Washington's community property laws but offered crucial guidance. Your inheritance from your grandfather is protected, my lawyer explained, as long as you have kept it separate from marital assets. And assets you owned before marriage can be excluded with proper documentation. That evening, staring at our wedding photo on the mantel, I finally acknowledged the truth. My wife was planning to leave me, and I needed to protect myself while there was still time. Each piece of evidence felt like another crack in the foundation of what I thought was a solid marriage. I created a detailed document recording every suspicious activity, including dates, times, and context. The digital trail Amanda left became increasingly damning. Her Google searches included phrases like "how much alimony can I get" and "hiding assets before divorce." One particularly painful discovery was an email thread with her mother discussing how Houston would never see it coming. I installed a password manager on my laptop, which helpfully synced the browsing history from our shared tablet. There I found evidence of multiple consultations scheduled with divorce attorneys across Seattle. Amanda had even researched the top divorce lawyers in our area, presumably to conflict them out and prevent me from hiring them. The calculated nature of her actions sent chills down my spine. The financial investigation revealed even more troubling patterns. Over 6 months, Amanda had methodically withdrawn nearly $40,000 from various accounts in amounts small enough to avoid triggering any alerts. Credit card statements showed purchases at high-end furniture stores and deposits on rental properties, clearly preparing for her new life without me. During this period, I maintained a facade of normalcy that deserved an acting award. We still had Sunday brunches with friends where she would affectionately hold my hand across the table. We planned a summer vacation to Hawaii with her enthusiastically researching resorts and activities she likely never intended to experience with me. The cognitive dissonance was maddening. Sleepless nights became my new normal. I would wake at 3 a.m, heart racing, replaying every conversation and interaction from our relationship. Had there been warning signs I missed? Was our entire marriage a strategic plan on her part? The questions eroded my self-confidence and left me questioning my judgment about everything. The worst moment came when I found a notebook in her home office with a detailed timeline. It included milestones like initial consultation dated 9 months earlier, secure separate housing scheduled for next month, and file papers marked for exactly 2 weeks from that day. There was even a notation for H's business trip, which aligned perfectly with a major conference I was scheduled to attend, apparently her planned time to move out while I was gone. I began seeing a therapist, secretly using lunch breaks at work to process my emotions and develop coping strategies. Dr. Marshall helped me manage the anxiety and betrayal without letting it show at home. "What you are experiencing is similar to grief," she explained during one session. "You are mourning the relationship you thought you had, while simultaneously having to make strategic decisions to protect yourself. Few situations are more emotionally complex." Each evening became an exercise in composure. Amanda would talk about future plans with apparent sincerity, all while her secret preparations continued. During one dinner, she casually brought up retirement planning, asking detailed questions about my 401k and stock options. I provided vague answers, while wondering how she could look me in the eyes. The toll extended beyond emotional distress. I lost 15 pounds in 3 weeks. Colleagues commented on my appearance, forcing me to fabricate a story about a new fitness regimen. I developed insomnia that left me staring at the ceiling while rehearsing confrontation scenarios in my mind. Through all this, I gathered advice from trusted sources. Jake connected me with his brother-in-law, a financial advisor who specialized in high-asset divorces. My older sister, a paralegal at a family law firm in another state, sent me articles and resources about protecting assets legally. Everyone emphasized the same point: act with integrity, but protect yourself within the boundaries of the law. I learned that moving assets with the intent to hide them could backfire severely in divorce proceedings. However, documenting separate property and ensuring proper accounting of premarital assets was not only legal but advisable. This fine line became my North Star as I formulated my response plan. With guidance from my newly assembled advisory team, I developed a strategy that would protect me without crossing any legal or ethical boundaries. First, I documented every financial contribution I had made to our marriage, creating spreadsheets, tracking the growth of my premarital assets that had been rolled into our joint holdings. I gathered proof of my grandfather's inheritance, which under state law remained separate property, as long as it had not been commingled with marital assets. Fortunately, I had maintained those funds in a distinct account, using only the interest for occasional shared expenses while preserving the principal. Next came the meticulous work of establishing financial boundaries. I opened a new individual checking account at a different bank and began depositing my paychecks there instead of our joint account. I left sufficient funds in our shared accounts to cover household expenses and maintained all bill payments, documenting everything, should questions arise later. The investment accounts required more complex adjustments. On advice from my financial planner, I halted additional contributions to joint investment vehicles while maintaining their existing management. For retirement accounts that listed Amanda as beneficiary, I made no changes, as these would be addressed during formal divorce proceedings. Throughout this process, I maintained detailed records of every action taken with timestamps and explanations of the reasoning behind each move. My lawyer emphasized repeatedly that transparency would be my best protection. "We are not hiding assets," he reminded me during our third consultation. "We are merely establishing clear boundaries around what is and is not marital property before proceedings begin." The emotional toll of these preparations was perhaps the hardest part. Each night I returned home to act as if everything was normal, knowing that both of us were now engaged in parallel deceptions. Amanda noticed the financial changes within days, casually questioning why my direct deposit had not appeared in our joint account. "The company is restructuring the payment system," I explained, the lie tasting bitter on my tongue. "It should resolve by next month. I have transferred enough to cover everything we need." She accepted this explanation with a tight smile, but I noticed her checking our account balances more frequently afterward. The tension in our home grew palpable as we circled each other like wary combatants, each waiting for the other to make the first definitive move. Amanda intensified her information-gathering efforts, suddenly showing interest in my recent project at work that included potential patent royalties. She suggested weekend trips to our mountain cabin where conveniently our financial documents were stored. I deflected these requests with work obligations, using the time instead to secure copies of all essential records. The strain began affecting other areas of my life. I struggled to concentrate at work, missing deadlines for the first time in my career. Sleep became a luxury. I rarely enjoyed averaging 3 hours of restless tossing each night. My closest colleagues noticed the change, but I maintained the fiction of minor health issues, rather than revealing the implosion of my personal life. Jake provided crucial emotional support during this period, meeting regularly for what we called strategy sessions, but which often became opportunities for me to process my grief and anger in a safe space. "I feel like I am mourning someone who is still sitting across from me at dinner," I confessed, during one particularly difficult evening. "How did I miss this? How long has she been planning this?" "Sometimes the people closest to us are the ones we see least clearly," he replied. "But Houston, remember that protecting yourself does not make you like her. You are responding to a threat, not initiating one." 2 weeks into my financial restructuring, Amanda scheduled what she called a special dinner for the following Tuesday. Something about her tone, when she mentioned having important things to discuss, confirmed my suspicions about her timeline. The divorce filing was imminent. That evening, I received a text from an unknown number clearly meant for Amanda documents ready for filing next week. Confirmed Tuesday meeting. Remember to secure valuables before discussion. She had accidentally left her tablet logged into her messages, which synced the text notification. When I mentioned receiving a strange text that evening, the color drained from her face before she quickly composed herself. The final countdown had begun. With just days remaining before her planned confrontation, I completed my preparation steps and steeled myself emotionally for what was to come. For the last time, I tried to remember the woman I had fallen in love with, searching her face for traces of the person who had once shared my dreams. All I found was a stranger, wearing my wife's familiar smile, counting down the moments until she could cash out of our life together. The divorce papers arrived on a Wednesday afternoon, while I was in a meeting with my development team. Our receptionist looked uncomfortable as she interrupted with an urgent delivery that requires immediate signature. The process server maintained professional detachment, but my colleagues' curious glances amplified the humiliation as I accepted the manila envelope with my name prominently displayed. Inside my office with the door firmly closed, I reviewed the filing. Despite my preparations, seeing the clinical language dissolving 10 years of my life sent a wave of nausea through me. Amanda was requesting our home half of all investment and retirement accounts, ongoing spousal support, and a portion of my future intellectual property rights for projects begun during our marriage. The document painted me as a distant workaholic who had emotionally abandoned the relationship, apparently justifying her excessive demands. That evening, my phone chimed with a text from Amanda. "I assume you received the papers today. I am staying at Tanya's this week. My lawyer suggests we meet to discuss terms before this becomes unnecessarily contentious. Lunch tomorrow at Belltown Bistro." The neutrality of her message after a decade together felt like the final insult. I responded with a simple confirmation, then spent the night reviewing my documentation with my lawyer and financial advisor, ensuring everything was properly organized for the confrontation to come. The restaurant she chose was upscale, and public, clearly selected to minimize the chance of an emotional scene. Amanda arrived 15 minutes late, immaculately dressed in a business suit I had never seen before. She air-kissed my cheek as if we were casual acquaintances before sliding into her seat with practiced grace. "Houston, I know this comes as a shock." She began her tone, suggesting rehearsed compassion. "But I think deep down we both know this marriage has not been working for some time. My lawyer has prepared what we believe is a fair settlement that acknowledges my contributions to your success." I maintained steady eye contact while she outlined her expectations. The prenuptial agreement we had both declined, her career sacrifices, the emotional labor she had contributed, all apparently justified her claim to the majority of our accumulated wealth. As she spoke, I silently placed a folder on the table between us. "Before we continue, you should review this," I said, when she finally paused for breath. "It might adjust your perspective on what constitutes a fair settlement." Her confident smile faltered as she opened the folder to find complete documentation of my asset protection strategy, along with evidence of her systematic planning. The color drained from her face when she reached the printed timeline from her own notebook. "Your lawyer has likely discovered by now that the assets you were counting on have been properly segregated and documented," I explained calmly. "The inheritance remains separate property by law. The premarital assets have been clearly identified, and the intellectual property agreements at my company specify that future royalties remain with the inventor regardless of marital status." "You had no right," she began, but stopped when I placed her notebook on the table. "No right to protect myself from something you have been planning for at least a year," I asked, keeping my voice low despite the emotion threatening to break through. "A plan you developed with your divorce coach while I was still planning our anniversary celebration." Her attempt to flip the narrative came next, tears appearing on command. "You do not understand the pressure I have been under. If you had been more emotionally available, more attentive to my needs, Amanda, I interrupted, sliding forward printouts of text messages between her and Michael, her wealthy colleague from the consulting firm. Messages detailing not just their affair, but their plans for after her financial windfall from divorcing me. Let's not add insult to this injury. The transformation was immediate and startling. The tears vanished, replaced by cold calculation, as she realized her position had fundamentally weakened. "My lawyer will contest all of this," she stated flatly. "Your lawyer can certainly try," I agreed. "But Washington courts take a dim view of adultery and conspiracy to deprive a spouse of rightful assets. Would you like to review the financial documentation next? The transfers you have been making to your secret account?" Perhaps what followed was the most honest conversation we had shared in years. Amanda admitted to planning the divorce for over a year, working with a divorce coach who specialized in helping spouses maximize settlements. She had begun her affair with Michael 8 months earlier, seeing him as both an emotional escape and future financial security. "He has a yacht, Houston," she said, as if this explained everything. "And 3 vacation properties. Do you know what it is like being married to someone who works 80 hours a week while friends are posting from Santorini?" The entitlement in her voice solidified my resolve. As our lunch concluded, Amanda's demeanor shifted from aggression to bargaining. Perhaps we could try counseling, maybe a trial separation instead of divorce. She even suggested a post-nuptial agreement that would give her security while we worked on our issues. I recognized these suggestions for what they were: a desperate attempt to regain control of a situation rapidly slipping from her grasp. Her financial calculations had been based on accessing significantly more of my assets than would now be possible. The backtracking accelerated over the following days. Her lawyer requested a meeting to reassess the initial filing. Her mother called, suggesting I had misunderstood Amanda's intentions. Even her sister Rachel reached out, though surprisingly, to offer an apology. "She told us you were emotionally abusive and financially controlling," Rachel explained during our unexpected coffee meeting. I had my doubts, but she was so convincing. "When she admitted the truth last night, I felt you deserved to hear directly that some of us never supported what she was doing." This validation from an unexpected source helped ease the lingering self-doubt that had plagued me. Perhaps my judgment had not been entirely flawed all these years. I had simply trusted someone who had mastered the art of deception. The divorce proceeded, but on substantially different terms than Amanda had anticipated. With her leverage evaporated, we negotiated a settlement that was fair, without being punitive. She received a reasonable one-time payment that acknowledged her contributions to our household but protected the assets I had brought to the marriage and those protected by law. Our Seattle home sold quickly in the hot market, allowing both of us to make fresh starts in new spaces. I purchased a smaller place closer to my office, embracing the minimalism that suddenly appealed after years of accumulating possessions that now held painful associations. The hardest part was not the division of property, but the shattered trust that affected every aspect of my life. For months, I questioned new acquaintances' motivations and kept people at arm's length. Dating seemed an impossible proposition when my ability to judge character had been so fundamentally called into question. Professional therapy became my lifeline during this period. Dr. Marshall helped me process not just the end of my marriage, but the reconceptualization of its entirety. Had any of it been genuine? Were there real moments of connection amidst the strategic positioning? Learning to hold space for both possibilities became part of my healing journey. 6 months after the divorce finalized, an unexpected opportunity emerged from the crisis. The focus I had poured into my work, as an escape from personal turmoil, led to a breakthrough on a project that had stalled for years. The patent application was approved, and the resulting technology generated interest from major players in our industry. The professional success felt like cosmic balance, creating new possibilities from the ashes of personal disappointment. As I gradually rebuilt my social life, I found myself drawn to different types of people than before. Authenticity and straightforwardness became the qualities I valued most, even when they came packaged with quirks or imperfections I might previously have found challenging. 1 year after finding that fateful business card, I met with Jake for dinner at the restaurant where we had first discussed my suspicions. The contrast between then and now was striking. The anxious, devastated man, desperately seeking guidance, had been replaced by someone more grounded, more discerning, and ironically, more open to genuine connection despite the hard lessons learned. I never would have chosen this path, I told him as we finished our meal. But I cannot deny that I like who I have become through surviving it. The strangest part is feeling grateful for a betrayal that forced me to discover my own resilience. The experience transformed my approach to all relationships, not just romantic ones. I became more intentional about maintaining friendships, more expressive of appreciation for those who stood by me, and more willing to be vulnerable with those who had earned my trust. The walls I initially built for protection gradually transformed into healthy boundaries that served rather than isolated me. Looking back now, I recognize the warning signs that my devotion to building our financial future had blinded me to. The gradual emotional withdrawal, the increasing materialism, the comparisons to friends with wealthier partners, all provided clues to Amanda's true priorities. In future relationships, I would be attentive to these signals without allowing past betrayals to poison new possibilities. The most significant lesson was the importance of maintaining financial literacy and appropriate separation even within the most trusting partnership. Love should never require financial blindness or complete merger. Healthy relationships balance sharing and autonomy, trust and verification, romance and practicality. If you have ever faced betrayal or suspected someone close to you might not have your best interests at heart, I hope my story offers some guidance. Looking back, what would you do if you noticed suspicious behavior from your partner? Would you confront them immediately or take time to prepare as I did? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and if this story helped you think differently about protecting yourself in relationships, please hit that subscribe button and share with someone who might benefit from these hard-earned lessons. Thank you for joining me through this difficult chapter of my life, and remember that sometimes the most painful endings create space for much better beginnings.